Meet Rajesh, software engineer at Wipro, 18 lakh package in Bangalore. On paper, he is doing well. Top 5% of earners in India. So it's around 1.2 lakhs a month after taxes. Sounds comfortable, right? Now let me show you where that money actually goes. Rupees 55,000 for rent, 15,000 for his daughter's school fees, 8,000 for coaching classes, 12,000 for groceries and essentials, 10,000 for EMI of his old car, and 5,000 for electricity, internet and maintenance. That's 1,05,000 already. He has 10,000 left for savings, emergencies and for life. Now tell me, does Rajesh feel rich to you? Most Indians do not dream of luxury. They dream of simple things. A decent home, their children's education, a few family vacations and peace of mind. But in 2026, even with a 18 to 20 lakh of salary, these basic needs are slipping further away. The question no longer is why our people in India are not rich. The question is why does a top tier salary no longer buy stability in India? One of the first things any family thinks about is their child's education. Not luxury, not status, but good education for their child. Because education is not optional. It's the foundation of everything that comes later. But this is also where many families feel the first real financial strain in India. In theory, India has a large government education system. There are supposedly more than 10 lakh government schools in India. But in reality, for a family earning 15 to 20 lakh in an urban city, government schools are rarely even considered. Not because parents are chasing elite branding. No, that is not the case. It is simply because you cannot trust the quality of the government schools in India. So what do families do instead? They opt for private schools. And that's where the first hole in the pocket appears for a middle class family in India. According to reports, government schools cost families around 2,800 rupees per year, while private schools cost about 25,000 rupees per year on average. And in metro cities, where most of the 20 lakh jobs actually exist, the annual cost per child can go up to rupees 50,000 or up to rupees 2 lakh or even more. And remember, this is not some luxury or extra elite schools that we are talking about. These are the regular so-called good private schools in India. But here's where the story gets even worse. Paying school fees does not solve the problem. In many cases, parents are told directly or indirectly that school education alone is not sufficient. Sometimes teachers themselves suggest extra classes, sometimes the syllabus is rushed, sometimes the focus is on exams and not understanding the concepts. So coaching institutes enter the picture. And remember, coaching is not a choice, it's a compulsion created by the Indian education system on the parents. Parents are not enrolling their children into coaching institutes because they want to. They do it because they are made to feel that without coaching, their child will fall behind. So now, on top of the school fees, families are paying an additional coaching fees. And trust me, when competitive exams enter the picture like engineering, medical or banking, the coaching costs can easily rise to 1 lakh per year or even more. At this point, education stops being a one-time expense. It becomes a financial commitment for the families. And naturally, the question arises why the burden falls so heavily on the middle-class families in India. Why is the Indian education system being too expensive? Why government schools have so bad quality? And why even these coaching institutes are needed? So one of the reasons is the priority and the spending made by the government on Indian education system. Now if we talk about this year budget of 2026, the government plans to spend around 1.39 lakh crores on education. Does it sound like a big number to you? Let's put it into context. If we see this as a share of the GDP, then India plans to spend around 2.7% on education. Now here's the important part. India has one of the youngest populations in the world, a demographic advantage. Yet, when we compare ourselves to other BRICS countries, we see something uncomfortable. South Africa spends close to 6% of its GDP on education. Brazil spends around 5.6%. China and Russia spend about 4% each. So India, with more young people than all of them, and hence more young people who actually need education, spends less on education compared to other BRICS countries. And you know, that gap actually shows up on the ground. It shows up in overcrowded classrooms, in uneven teaching quality in schools that are unable to fully prepare students, forcing families to compensate with private spending, which brings us back to the middle class household. Parents are not overspending because they want an edge. They are overspending because they want to reduce the risk of not getting even the minimal quality of education for their children. They're trying to ensure that their child doesn't get left behind in a system that doesn't guarantee quality by default. And this is how education becomes the first big structural cost in the life of a middle class family in India. Education is just the beginning. The next major one, and arguably the biggest one, is the housing cost. By now we can agree on one thing. Someone earning 15 to 20 lakh a year is almost certainly working in a metro or large urban city like Bangalore, Mumbai, NCR, Hyderabad or Pune. That's where these jobs are that can pay you a 20 lakh salary per annum. And that's where the housing math starts falling apart. If you choose to rent a decent 2-bedroom apartment in these cities, that can easily cost anywhere between 30,000 to 60,000 rupees a month, depending on the location. And that's not luxury housing. That's just a reasonable, livable house close to your working location. Now, pause for a second and let's do the math. A rupees 20 lakh package usually translates to roughly 1.1 to 1.2 lakhs per month in hand after taxes, which means rent alone can take 30 to 50% of your take-home salary, and that's before school fees, groceries and transport. And rather than renting, if you plan to buy a house, that opens another door. If you try to own a home in a metro, prices for even modest apartments often start at rupees 80 lakh to 1.5 crore. To afford that, you can take a home loan, and a typical EMI for such a loan can easily range from 60,000 per month to 90,000 per month, depending on the size and the location, which again means that 40 to 60% of your total income is locked into the housing loan. And this is where something important happens. A salary that looks strong on paper starts looking fragile in real life. Now the obvious question arises, why has housing become so expensive in India? So one of the reasons is that the housing supply in job-rich cities hasn't kept up with the demand. I mean, simply stating, the demand of houses is exceeding the supply of houses. Another reason is that regulatory issues like land acquisition issues, environmental clearances, and building plan sanctions often create on average 18 to 24 months of delays, which increases the costs of these houses. Now, add to these, real estate has increasingly become an investment asset, not just a place to live. This is the money from wealthy Indians, NRIs, foreign investors who buy real estate as an investment, which creates shortage of the available residential units for the middle class. So the prices of the real estate keeps rising even when the salaries do not. And once again, the burden doesn't disappear, it quietly shifts onto the shoulders of the middle class families. Now, housing is only the second pressure point for the middle class families in India, because even after education and housing, life doesn't stop. Fuel is one of them. And fuel in India is where a global problem quietly becomes an Indian household problem. India runs on oil. We all need it for transport, cooking, electricity, and logistics. Fuel just does not power the cars that you drive, but it powers trucks that move food, tractors that grow crops, factories that manufacture goods, and delivery networks that bring in the essentials. But here's the structural problem. India imports around 85% of its crude oil from globally. This is because India produces too little of oil domestically. Hence, apart from the taxes, fuel prices are also driven by global shocks. So when fuel becomes expensive due to tariffs, wars, pandemic, or other geopolitical shocks, transport cost rises, food prices rise, services become more costlier. This is why grocery bills increase even when the official data shows that inflation is under control. Now, housing locks your income for decades. Fuel and food raise costs every single day. And then there's one expense that can wipe out years of savings in a single blow. This is, my dear friend, is the healthcare expenses. Because in India, health can actually take your wealth. You don't feel the pressure of healthcare expenses every day like rent and groceries. But when it hits all at once. A single hospitalization, a surgery, a long-term illness. And suddenly the financial math collapses for you. India's healthcare system is still largely out of pocket driven, which means most families pay the expenses using their savings and not using a universal health coverage. Even a Niti Aayog report shows that today also over 60% of the healthcare costs are paid by households and not the insurers. Yes, many people now have health insurance, but insurance often comes with limits, exclusions, waiting periods, and co-payment. So when a serious medical event happens, insurance helps, but it rarely covers everything. A large survey found that among people who filed health insurance claims in the last 3 years, 33% said their claims was only partially paid, and 20% said that their claim was rejected for invalid reasons. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Even for a family earning 15 to 20 lakhs a year, a major medical event can still be destabilizing. So when we step back and look at the full picture, one thing becomes clear. Life in India is not cheap for the middle class, even those earning 15 to 20 lakhs a year. And not because people are living extravagantly and not because people have unrealistic expectations, but because the cost of basic stability has risen across the board. Because a society where even a 20 lakh salary doesn't buy peace of mind, it is not suffering from lack of ambition. It is suffering from a mismatch between the economic growth on the paper and the real quality of life of people on the ground. If this has resonated well with you, share it with someone who needs it. And if you like such videos on India's economic reality, do like and subscribe. See you in the next video. Thank you.
एक शो करके आया हूं, उसमें लोग पूछ रहे थे कि मिडिल क्लास के लिए बजट में क्या है, बजट में क्या है।